Welcome to Please Me, the podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap, one empowering conversation at a time. Last week I spoke with Christina Braver about her many steamy novels and how she secretly drops tips and tricks into her sex scenes to inform, educate, and heat things up. I'm happy to announce that I am still in the running for the Fab Over 40 competition and have made it to the top 5, so please follow the link in the show notes and continue to cast your free votes daily. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
There is no science to what happens to women with their female and male hormones in perimenopause and menopause and throughout that whole cycle. So the patient would normally walk into my office and say, "Doc, you're the 8th doc. You're the 12th doc." I had one patient say to me, "You're the 18th doctor that I've seen and no one can help me." And I would smile and say, "You're in the right place because I'm going to help you."
Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to welcome Victoria Mondloch to the show. She is a retired OBGYN, and she is on a mission to help women with their hormone imbalance with the help of your own insurance. She wrote a book called Full Bloom, and I am here to welcome her to the show today. Thank you so much for being here today, Victoria. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Eve. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So this conversation is so important for so many women. And I know me, myself, I am in perimenopause. So I have been looking for solutions to all of the symptoms that I have been having with my perimenopausal issues. And so this is so important. And I have found hormones myself that are over the counter, but I would love to talk to you about what we can do when we go to our gynecologist office, because I know that for me, the last time I went to my gynecologist office in, I think it was January or February, it was my yearly annual. And I asked her specifically to speak to her about my perimenopausal symptoms. And I had a list of things that I wanted to talk to her about. And somehow the appointment, we did the screenings and we did this and we did that. And I walked out and didn't even have the conversation with her about perimenopause, which I was very upset about. I didn't realize it till after the fact because we touched upon a lot of different things, but we never even had the conversation and she never brought it back up. So what do you say to that?
I'm going to tell you that's not an uncommon story that I've heard from patients that switched from their prior doctor to come to see me. In fact, many times they felt dismissed or they felt unheard or they felt like their doctor just gave them a blank stare, like, "I don't know what to tell you because we aren't taught how to deal with perimenopause and menopause." It's true, medical schools will rarely pay anything other than lip service, other than you go through your puberty, you go through your reproductive years, you go through perimenopause, and then menopause hits. And that's about all they teach in medical school. There is no science to what happens to women with their female and male hormones in perimenopause and menopause and throughout that whole cycle. So the patient would normally walk into my office and say, "Doc, you're the 8th doc. You're the 12th doc." I had one patient say to me, "You're the 18th doctor that I've seen and no one can help me." And I would smile and say, "You're in the right place because I'm going to help you." So most women think hot flashes are their only symptom. And what they don't realize is there are a host of symptoms, some more estrogen deprivation symptoms, some more progesterone deprivation symptoms, some are more excess testosterone symptoms. And you go, what? Wait a minute. You mean there are times that we actually become more male than female? That's not right. And that's exactly right. It isn't right because our metabolism is set up to be female, not male. But unless our doctors have been taught what really is the science that happens with our hormone levels, there's no way that they can counsel you in how to do that. So that was what I did with my patients is I tracked and trended their female male hormone levels. And it's amazing what you can do when you can apply science to the symptoms that you're having and then use that to help rebalance where you need to be. What a concept, right?
And I have to say what you said before about being dismissed by your doctor and they have that blank stare. If you don't have the training, how could you possibly help someone else? You need to have that education. And, we expect that our doctors have this education and we go to them when we're pregnant. They have tons of education around giving birth, etc. But then they don't necessarily have a lot of education around menopause. Some doctors get that continued education post medical school, right? But if they don't, you may be going to the wrong doctor for the issue that you have, right? So I want to talk about optimal levels of hormones because I know that sometimes when I've heard this from many women say that when they go to their doctor and they say, oh, I'm postmenopausal, but I'd like to get my hormones tested. And the doctor will say, oh, you don't need your hormones tested anymore because you're postmenopausal. So it's normal for them to be decreased. It may be normal for them to be decreased, but not necessarily optimal. So let's talk about optimal health and optimal hormone levels.
And thank you for making that distinction because you're right. In lab testing, labs that are drawn are given a reference range. And that reference range, believe it or not, is determined by people age 10 to age 90. What? So how on earth can that be considered an age-appropriate hormone level? It can't be. So in particular, then, you need to know what are normal or optimal menopausal levels as compared to perimenopausal levels. You also need to know how that relates to where you had been when you were in your menstrual career, where you were when you were in adolescence. So in my book, Full Bloom, I go through what those age-appropriate levels and what the graph should look like. In particular, this graph is the dark line is where the estradiol and progesterone levels from a 20-year-old woman all the way through to menopause. So 30 to 40 is this 100th, 80th to 100th percentile. You get the sawtooth that happens in perimenopause. And then when you hit menopause, you do a spike and then you stop. But in particular, that spike is simply a last hurrah. And then you stop making female hormone. Let me say that again. You stop making female hormone. But guess what? You continue to make male hormone. So in menopause, you actually become male. No, yet you will have symptoms of low estradiol, like poor sleep, like migraines. Yes, your hot flashes, your night sweats. You'll have heart racing, like heart palpitations. You'll have sore muscles, joint pain. You'll have bladder leakage. You sneeze, you stand up and your bladder leaks and you go, oh my goodness gracious. You have increased acid reflux. You have symptoms that don't really seem to go along with just hot flashes. And all of those organ systems are telling you, where's my estradiol? Where did it go? And yet there are also symptoms of where did your progesterone go? Those are your PMS symptoms of moodiness and emotionality and crying, hearing a radio commercial on the radio and you're crying because it just brings you back to an emotional place and you're thinking, I'm crying over a commercial. Or GI upset, you have 2 bites of food and now you're unbuttoning your waistband because you're bloating. What is wrong with this picture? Or you're getting constipation or water retention or breast tenderness, headaches, or you may be getting excess testosterone symptoms of losing hair here, putting that hair on here, maybe shaving, feeling the effects of putting weight on in your belly, mid abdominal weight gain, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds. You haven't changed a thing. You're doing the same exercise, you're eating the same, and the weight is piling on. So unless you can put a scientific basis to why is this happening and understand that you stop making female, but you keep making male, you just took and flipped the whole, you were female before versus male, you just flipped it. Gee, what a surprise that your body goes berserk and it sends you symptoms all over the map. Yet, if they don't teach this to your doctors, they can't teach it to you. So, how are you supposed to know? And libido is actually a low estradiol symptom. What? I would say that to my doctor and they'd say, you need testosterone. That's what gives you libido. Guess what? It gives men libido. We're not men.
Right.
We're women. So libido in women is due to estradiol. And if you can put estradiol back in and then rebalance it with your progesterone, you will then push the male back down. You will remain female. And the optimal for menopause is 30 to 50 by a blood test for your estradiol. And that's a hugely important number to know because there, and I outline the research in my book, but there is a distinct difference in having a number of estradiol below 30. You are prone to bone loss, osteopenia, osteoporosis. You are also therefore prone to more male because you have that imbalance going on. You need a level of 30 of estradiol. If you have a level of 30, you will then absorb the calcium that you take in your food or as a supplement. And if you absorb your calcium, now you have that fighting chance with weight-bearing exercise, calcium, and an estradiol level of 30 of maintaining your bone health, even reversing osteopenia, reversing osteoporosis back to normal. Wow.
That's so amazing. And a lot of times we're not talking about bone health, right? When it comes to hormones, we're thinking hot flashes and all of some of the other symptoms that you said. We're not thinking about bone loss, but when you don't have the proper hormonal levels, it affects your whole entire body. So that I appreciate you bringing that up because bone loss is such an important issue that we need to consider as we get older in women because we stop exercising as much or whatever that may be. And osteoporosis is such a prevalent condition in women, and it doesn't have to be if we are maintaining the proper hormone levels. Let's talk a little bit about why a woman would have bone loss specifically in postmenopause.
There are some medications that make women more prone to having bone loss. It's they have conditions like thyroid disease that aren't being addressed that can contribute to bone loss. If they have excess stress, which is cortisol, that is actually going to artificially drop and stress their female hormone levels. Interestingly, even if they have a problem with their blood sugar, it's going to put stress on their female hormones and on their stress hormone, and could have a secondary effect on what happens with their female hormone in their bones. But realize bones aren't just our spine or our wrist, which are the two most common places for women to have a fracture. But realize bone loss in a jaw, oh my goodness, can mean that you lose normally good, healthy teeth, because bone loss is going to change the relationship of how the tooth is in the bone and in the socket. And I've had women in their 70s walk in and say to me, Doc, I'm not on any medication. I'm so proud of that. But I have to go in and have all of my teeth pulled and put implants in. It's going to cost me $40,000 because I have bone loss in my jaw. What am I doing wrong? And my first and only question is, are you paying attention to your female male hormone balance? What's that? And nobody's ever addressed that if they don't maintain that estradiol level of 30, they're going to lose bone here too, which means they now may lose every tooth in their mouth.
I love that you bring that up because dental health is so important to a lot of different aspects of your body, right? When you have poor dental hygiene, it can cause cardiovascular health. And this is so interesting because if you think of the skeleton and you look at a skeleton, one of those skeletons that you see at your doctor's offices or whatever, the teeth are attached, right?
Right.
The teeth are attached because the teeth are part of your skeleton. Okay. And a lot of people don't realize that the teeth are part of your skeleton. So if you're going to have bone loss in your skull, it is going to affect your teeth. And so what an important message to be putting out there, that hormones are important for your oral health too, because
Right.
bone loss is important for us so that we don't have falls and break bones. But also we want to have pretty teeth and we don't want to spend $40,000, $60,000 on implants. That is hugely traumatic to your head. If you think about just one implant, let alone replacing your entire mouth or having to wear dentures for the rest of your life. None of us want that, right? So it's so important to take care of your entire body, and hormones are such an important aspect to that. For ad-free listening, exclusive bonus episodes, Eve's library of archived webinars, and early access to new releases of Please Me, become a monthly supporter on Patreon. Simply open the Patreon app on your phone, search for Please Me, and subscribe today for premium content and more. Cheers to finding your pleasure and big clit energy. I want to talk a little bit about the male hormones that you keep bringing up, because I was going to ask you, that's when women start to have like fur on their chin or start having like random hair. And so that's like the only symptom that I really can think of. But can you tell us more things that could be caused by having too much or maybe just normal testosterone, but suddenly your estrogen and progesterone, your female hormones, are decreased?
And again, the most disturbing symptom that almost every single patient walking into my office would mark on that symptom sheet was mid-abdominal weight gain. We covet how we look. We take care of our health. We take care of our body shape. We know what pant size, what skirt size, what dress size. And we're not going to go out and buy another professional wardrobe simply because we go through menopause. Wait a minute. I'm not going to go from a size 10 to a size 16 just because my doctor doesn't know how to properly balance me. Oh no, not on my watch. And I'm not going to prematurely wrinkle and prematurely age because I lose my skin elasticity by dropping estradiol and letting male hormone take over. I'm not going to shave every day because I'm losing hair here and talk to my hairdresser about I can't get hair color anymore because it's going to cause too much hair loss and I'm going to have bald spots, and I'm putting it on and I'm shaving because I'm getting sideburns. Wait a minute. These are all things that shouldn't even be in our conversation. But the biggest one is that mid-abdominal weight gain. You do nothing differently, and suddenly it's 3 inches on your abdomen in your nicely tailored pants. You suddenly are going for the stretchy waisted stuff that just doesn't look as stylish, doesn't look as professional. And there you are at a professional meeting and you're unbuttoning your pants as subtly as you can because you just had 3 bites of something at lunch. It's now this meeting and you just are so uncomfortable. You can't continue to sit there unless you open up your pants. So it just is not what we think we should be going through. And a lot of women would say to me, I didn't sign up for this. So how do we go back to where we were before? It's easy. We simply put you back to being more female than male.
So I love that you bring that up because, yes, weight gain is one of those things that everybody is concerned about. Really, Americans are like so obsessed with their weight, right? And so many Americans are overweight, unfortunately. And I talk a lot about nutrition, which we're not going to get into right now. But I definitely love that you brought up the weight gain in your middle because that also predisposes you to more cardiovascular issues and heart attacks and that sort of thing. So it's not just about looking good, right? It's also about our overall health. And you mentioned cortisol before, and that's one of those hormones on my lab tests that are elevated. And I know that it's because I don't sleep well. And you mentioned too that decreased sleep is also one of those menopausal symptoms, which I actually didn't realize poor sleep was one of those symptoms. So let's just talk about cortisol, sleep, and stress.
Absolutely. There are 4 main foundational hormones. So it's your female, male. Your cortisol is one of those 4, then thyroid, then insulin. But cortisol has stress. We have this notion of stress is simply what we see, what happens to us on a daily basis. Oh, I can handle my stress. But are you handling your stress? And that range for AM cortisol, meaning if you're a first shifter, about 3 to 4 hours after you awake in the morning. Okay, that's when it's best to get drawn. But that AM cortisol has an optimal range. And if you're not in that optimal range, then you could be towards the low end of that range, which is actually trending toward adrenal distress or fatigue, the optimal range, and then the stress range over here. Stress is something that we can normally manage quite well by supporting our adrenal gland. That's where cortisol is coming from. That's where we make it. It sits right above your kidneys by doing a methylated vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex are all the B vitamins. Why methyl? Methyl is a detox method in the body. And methylation helps you grab extra free radicals or junk and pull it out of the body so you clear it. It's clearing junk from your tissues because junk in your tissues is stressful to your body. It's not just what's stressful to your mind, but it could be emotional stress, it can be work stress, it could be financial stress, it can be physical stress, of course. But realize cortisol is one of the ways to check it. Do it by blood test. And I'll give you an example of what distress can look like. Distress, when you're on the low end of things, means you have run yourself through the stress so much that you've used everything up and you've gone this way. You've traveled all the way back to the point where your adrenal just goes, I quit. I'm done. I'm just not going to make any more. And you literally shut your adrenal gland down. Oh, not good. So here's the story I'll tell you. A recent grad, 2 years out of mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering degree at a 4-year college, joins a company. She's a clean the desk kind of girl, right? So she joins this department of 6 engineers, And because the work is so intense, one by one, every couple of months, one of these engineers quits. They take and put that work on her desk instead of hiring someone to replace. By the time she's another 8 months out, there are only 3 of them left, but most of that work has been put onto her desk. She's a clean desk girl. So what is she doing? She's staying late at work. She's starting to go in on Saturdays. And her fiance said to her, enough. You're done with that. The work will be there. I need you for me during your off work hours, right? Now, doesn't that sound logical and wonderful? She couldn't navigate that. She was having trouble. And I get a phone call from her family going, you have to see her. There is something really, we don't know what's going on, but you have to see her. So they bring her into the office and she is agitated and she's just jumpy. Every time she hears a noise, she just reacts to the noise. And she's got her phone in her hand, and her phone in her hand is like her lifeline. And all of a sudden it goes off with a text and she jumps, and it's her boss texting her. And she's now by this point sitting in my office. And I said to her, how can I help you? Her phone goes off and she's texting back and forth, puts her phone down. It responds. She picks it back up. We go through this for 5 minutes. And I just sat back and watched. And after about 5 minutes, she put her phone down and she looked at me and she whispered, help me. And I thought, oh my Lord, she had no idea how to break this cycle. I checked her cortisol level, and 2 days before, because I'd wanted her blood work done anyway. So we had it, and she was below the low level of the range. What that meant is she was actually going through the beginning of a nervous breakdown. And I couldn't put enough methyl B vitamins in her to bring her up fast enough to get her back. In other words, I asked her then, what day is it? And she gave me a completely bogus day than it was. I said, what month is it? And she gave me a month 4 months prior. What year is it? She gave me the wrong year. Almost like a dementia patient. She had lost all comprehension of where she was. And she had just put herself in this little box of she had to perform, but only at work, and everything else went away. And we had to put her in a psych hospital because she needed a safe space to be able to readjust, realign. And again, I couldn't put enough methyl B vitamins in her to help her come back. It had already gone too far. So there can be real life consequences of too low. Too high, I've seen people actually have that high cortisol impact their cardiac status by some lipid testing. I've seen them drop their good HDL down below normal limits and have that actually drop their female hormone levels because they're so stressed trying to help the stressed cortisol level. Because those 4 hormone groups are like 4 legs of a chair. And if one is broken, cortisol, then the others have to take on the extra added work because this leg broke. And so it gets reflected in other labs. And unless docs or patients realize it, they don't even know they're putting excess stress on their thyroid or their female male or their insulin until they suddenly have another leg that breaks.
I feel like my mind just blew, right? Because my cortisol levels are elevated due to stress. However, something that's always been too low has been my good cholesterol. I'm wondering if there's any correlation between the two, because I've always had low good cholesterol and I eat avocado. I have a great diet. I do all of the things I'm supposed to do to have, and I even take omegas. I do all of the things I'm supposed to do to have great cholesterol levels. Sorry, there's a little fly flying around here. However, my good cholesterol is always low. I would love to know if there's a correlation there.
There is, especially when you are in high stress or in distress. It's not the only factor, but of course, your exercise and weight-bearing exercise, aerobic exercise is a huge part of your HDL as well. But so are your estradiol female hormone levels. But I took care of a patient that went back to work after not working other than a part-time job. She took a full-time third shift job, partly because she liked the work, but she had to drive 1 hour one way to get to work a third shift job as a nursing assistant in a nursing home, and then drive 1 hour back to get home. What she ended up doing is her cortisol level doubled, taking her way out of this beyond the stress range to uber stress. And she went from an HDL that was at the baseline of low but normal, and she dropped it in half to almost single digits. And I said to her, when I saw that value, I said, you're going to give yourself a heart attack if you don't stop. And she said, what am I supposed to do? I said, as hard as this is to hear, I know you love your job, but your job doesn't love you. It's going to kill you. I said, you need to make the hard decision that if you still want this job, you're going to have to make some hard choices about what that means for your heart. And she said, I don't want to have a heart attack. I said, then I'm sorry to say, you might need a new job, and you better do it because there is nothing else I can give you to raise your HDL enough to make up for the double of your cortisol that just cut in half your HDL. I said, there isn't any supplement I can give you. So
I love when doctors look at the whole picture, and you're talking to your patients about their jobs, you're talking about their hormones, you're talking about their lifestyle. These are all of the things that you need to bring up to your doctor when you are having the conversation with your doctor. And what would you recommend people saying to their doctor when they go in and say, I want to get my hormones tested because I think I'm in perimenopause, postmenopause, or I think there's something wrong, or and I don't feel well? What do you recommend for people to say to their doctors that doesn't dismiss them? Because what we want is for people to really be proactive at being advocates for themselves.
right. First and foremost, I'm going to tell you, even though it sounds like I'm just trying to hawk my book, but Full Bloom has that symptom worksheet in it that I showed you. First and foremost, you have to actually educate your doctor as to what your symptoms are, and the symptoms that you have are actually relatable to your hormones. They don't know this. This isn't taught in medical school. So that symptoms worksheet is in the book. Okay, that's number one. But I'll make sure, Eve, that you have that single page sheet that you can offer free to anybody who is listening to this podcast, that they can download, mark it, make a copy of it, hand it to your doctor and say, these are my symptoms. All 10 of them, all 12, all 6, however many you mark. And I want to address each and every one of these. So these are the labs that I want drawn. Guess what? At the back of the book is a chapter. You can't really see that, but it's how to talk to your healthcare provider. Sorry, my camera just...
That's okay. That's so helpful. So we'll definitely include that link in the show notes for sure.
Right.
And that brings us to our role play. And we talked a little bit about this before, but on season 4, we're doing a role play at the end of each episode to talk about how we can model these sorts of conversations. So I'm going to be a patient and you're going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be coming to see you about my stuff. And I want you to help me. Here we go. Action. Hi, doctor. How are you today? I am here because I just feel so terrible and I can't figure out what is wrong with me. I have been to 10 other doctors and I'm not even sure if you can help me or not, but I really need somebody to try and see why I'm feeling so terribly. My sleep has been really terrible. I'm not able to sleep more than 5 hours per night, which means that I'm not feeling energetic during the day, and I feel just like I am having a lot of vaginal dryness, which is very uncomfortable, and it's causing problems in my sex life. My libido is good, thank goodness, but I'm needing Uber Lube constantly to be added to the situation because I have a lot of dryness, and I would love to find out if you could help me.
You're in the right place because all of the symptoms that you just listed are all low estradiol symptoms. Let's go through this worksheet. Remember, I showed that worksheet before, and every symptom that you mentioned is in the low estradiol. Okay. But you may find as we go through this sheet that there are a few extra in here that you had no idea also relate to low hormone. So I would take an extra few minutes, go through it with you, and you may actually tell me, "Oh, I get migraines too. Oh, I forgot that. You mean that's related to hormone being low? Oh, you mean me having uh, increased abdominal gas and bloating? That's due to low hormone? Oh, losing hair. My gosh, I I have to clean the sink trap every time I take a shower and wash my hair because my hair seems to be coming out in droves. This is all relatable to hormone. So I would say to you then, mark your top three on this symptom sheet that we just filled out. So you may have 8, you may have 10, you may have 5, but mark for me your top three. So your top three would be your sleep, your vaginal dryness, your perhaps deep fatigue, low energy. And I would say to you, with your permission, if I can get rid of those top three symptoms for you in the next 6 to 9 months, would that be okay with you?
Oh, yes. I would love that, doc. I would absolutely love some help with all of those things. So thank you. End scene. I love modeling these conversations because a lot of times people feel very embarrassed to talk about certain issues, especially when it comes to sexuality. And for me, my sex life is very important. And I try to empower women to embrace their sexuality. And so if I lost my sex drive, I think I would be, very sad. Let's just put it that way. So I want to make sure that my listeners can find you. Where can my listeners find you, Victoria?
My first and foremost, what's listed is my website.
I already had it up. Okay.
And the link to both Full Bloom, the perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause book, but also my adolescent book, which is Blossoming.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's a mother-daughter book for the adolescent because they go through hormone swings too. It's really something we all know an adolescent who's going through hormone swing, but their moms don't know how to help them. Interestingly, what the moms in perimenopause go through with up and down hormone levels is the same thing, but mirror image to what their adolescent daughter is going through. So are they going through it together and clashing? Or is it something that we can educate both mother and daughter so they can work together and both learn how they can help each other, support each other? The adolescent has never gone through this at all. This is all startup for them.
Oh, wow.
The mom went through it, quote unquote, survived adolescence, made it through the reproductive years, and now in their 40s, they're going through the same crazy up and down hormone swings that their daughters they went through when they were in adolescence. That's what this graph is showing, is the same up and down swings are the female hormone levels for the adolescent and for that perimenopausal mom. And so it's important to know that there is science that we can apply, and that if we can apply science and understand what is happening, we can understand why we're having the symptoms that we're having, which then gives us the strength and the fortitude and the pathway to say, then there's something I can do about it.
Absolutely. That is amazing that you also have a book for adolescents. And I will have to have you back on the show to talk about that book, because all of us are sexual beings. And, as our daughters get older, we need to support them and not just throw them on birth control like they did to me. And I was on it for my whole life, and that can't be healthy. So we will definitely have to have you back on the show to discuss, menstruation and how we can help our younger daughters to navigate that part of life without having to be on a medication for their entire lives. So I'm sure you have lots of insights, but we are out of time. So with that being said, I'm going to thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure.
And I want to make sure that everybody can find me as well on pleaseme.online. And again, if you love this show as much as I loved recording it, please copy and paste it and just send it to somebody that you think could really benefit from listening to this information, because we all are here to support each other as women. So thank you all for listening. And until next time. During COVID, I gave up 3 things. One was not wearing makeup every day. Another thing was that I stopped working for other people. And so hence my podcast and hence my private practice, Inspire Health Physical Therapy. And the third thing I gave up during COVID was wearing a bra. Cakes is an incredible product that I've been using so that I don't have to wear a bra all the time, but I can look like I have a bra on. And what it does is it just covers up the little nipple show that you have going through your clothes, and it allows your clothes to fit you seamlessly and smoothly. And it is a beautiful product, and they are so much more comfortable to wear. It's so important to give your body time without a bra, because just like any other brace, if you're wearing an ankle brace or a knee brace and you wear it all the time, it's going to cause atrophy around that joint. And the same goes for a bra. If you're wearing a bra all the time, it's going to also cause weakness in your pectoralis muscles. And the pectoralis muscles are the muscles that help you to lift your breasts. And if they get weak, your breasts will sag. So wearing cakes is really great for decreasing sagging. So I just wanted to come on here and tell you to get your cakes. And I wanted to share mine with you. Today I have the triangle ones on, and I'm going to show you how easy they are. They adhere without adhesive to the skin naturally. And you can see they come in different colors. So make sure you check out the link below and get your cakes today.